The strategic Bitcoin reserve, it's on its way. This is what Secretary of Commerce Lutnick said recently. He said, hey, it's going to happen this Friday, March 7th at the Crypto Summit. And the Crypto Summit actually falls on my birthday. So this could be the best present ever if they announce a strategic Bitcoin reserve. And the interesting thing about Lutnick is that he has said he owns hundreds of millions of dollars of Bitcoin. So clearly there are people in this administration who are Bitcoiners who will gain from a strategic Bitcoin reserve, and very, very bullish news. As you can see, I'm in the car studio. I'm actually on my way to the bank. I have to go to the bank because I have to physically go there, which is so painful. And as you can see, I have on my Bitcoin sweatshirt, so I'm about to roll into the bank with my Bitcoin sweatshirt. Neither here nor there. One of the coolest things about Bitcoin right now is that if you own it, then you are pre-government. You're pre-government saying this is something we want to have in a strategic reserve, which is super cool. Just like if you owned Bitcoin before January 10th, 2024, then you were pre-institution. I tell people all that time. So cool you got it in 2023 because you were pre-institution. You were pre-BlackRock having it. You were pre-Vanguard having it. You were pre-Van Eck having it. You were Franklin Templeton having it. You were pre-billion-dollar hedge funds having access to this through the ETF. So I just think that that's super cool. This is not a structured video. I normally like to have a little bit more structure, but I kind of wanted to just hop on and do this video. So thank you for checking this out and watching. I also want to say that right now it's kind of wild, and I tweeted this the other day, and the idea is basically that I think it's wild right now that people are still saying that Bitcoin is a scam because it's being adopted by really, governments are looking at it. So many states across the United States have passed Bitcoin legislation. I'll put a map up of that. And it's just like, this is slowly starting to take over, definitely the United States. I know so many high net worth individuals that are definitely putting, up to 5% of their wealth. They're selling real estate to get into it. It seems like it's a moment. So going back to the tweet, it's just crazy that people are still calling it a scam because it is so far from a scam. And one of the things I say right now is that if you understand that it's not a scam and you're able to get into it and you're able to allocate to it at whatever percent, even if you, DCA $10 a week, that is more money right now than some of the biggest sovereign wealth funds in the world and some of the biggest governments in the world. And so it's like, don't shake a stick. And here we almost fell over there. It's like, don't shake a stick at that. Just continue to allocate capital, even if you think it's a little bit, because if you have children, it could be a lot of it. It could be a lot of it down the line. So going back to the tweet, I think right now, the arbitrage between and understanding what's happening and what maybe people are telling you is happening is one of the greatest arbitrages in modern history when it comes to finance. And this is a little janky. So it's one of the greatest arbitrages right now in modern history when it comes to finance, when it comes to investment. Because if you ask the average person, if you're at your gym or you're walking around the supermarket, you run into someone who, I'm stateside right now, so I run into people who I knew in high school. And if I start to talk to them about Bitcoin, they think it's like a conspiracy. They think it's a scam. They think all of these things. So the arbitrage of that information, the arbitrage of understanding that this is not a scam, that this is very real, that this is taking electrons from the real world, taking physical energy, harnessed energy into electricity, and getting out, digital cash, global digital cash, securing the Bitcoin network. This is just such crazy stuff, and it's so hard for people to wrap their mind around. So if you are in it and you have wrapped your mind around this, I just think it is one of the greatest arbitrages of our generation. And I think there are other arbitrages which we do talk about on Future Signal. One of them is AI. We're going to get into some quantum computing. We're going to get ideally into fusion energy. I was on a space last night on X with a guy who's talking about fusion and fission and how we as the United States and the world, we need to start to adopt these technologies and not shake a stick at these technologies and shy away from these technologies. So anyways, this has been kind of a rant, but hopefully you're feeling the same. The strategic Bitcoin reserve seems to be right on the cusp. Today is Wednesday, March 5th. They're saying they're going to announce it on Friday the 7th, which is a big deal. Very, very, very big deal. So hopefully you're getting excited for the strategic Bitcoin reserve. if you were at Nashville or you knew what was kind of planted at Nashville, RFK got up, Senator Loomis talked about a reserve, and I believe in RFKs, and I could be a little fuzzy once again, I'm in the car, I'm just thinking out loud here, candidly talking here in the car studio, but RFK had talked about 1 million Bitcoin into a reserve, and he talked about buying 200,000 Bitcoin for 5 years, and unless I'm really wrong, 200,000 Bitcoin right now is probably more, and I'll correct myself on the screen if I'm wrong here, but that's probably more than the amount of Bitcoin that's being mined right now, because right now every 10 minutes there's a block being mined, and it's 3.125 Bitcoin will be the reward to miners for securing the system. So I do believe 200,000 would be way more than the amount annually that's going to be mined. So we're getting into a supply squeeze. And if you've watched the videos on why 0.1 and why 99% of people will never own it, and you just look at the scarcity side, you're looking at why 1 Bitcoin is so rare, it is going to become so scarce. And the other thing that's going to be kicked off from a potential strategic Bitcoin reserve announcement from the US is that there's no other way, or there's no way that the G7 and the G20, the biggest other economies in the world aren't going to look at this and say, oh wow, we better get on board or we're going to be left behind. And this is just going to be a game theory situation that's going to play out in an unbelievable fashion that everyone has been talking about, but we're finally going to potentially see. And so if other countries are starting to allocate their euros, their yuan, their yen, their pesos, their whatever their currency is to try to get Bitcoin, all the predictions I've made about how scarce it is are just out the window. Once again, I'm just kind of blabbing here as I'm in the car on my way to the bank, but thank you for joining me. I just think if a strategic Bitcoin reserve is announced and they start to get, as RFK had pointed out, 200,000 Bitcoin a year, that's going to be an amount that, I believe is more than the amount that we're mining annually. And so the supply squeeze is just going to be on as other nations hop in. And then I think finally high net worth individuals will hop in. The other thing that I think will happen, which I've talked about a lot, is I think TradFi banks are fully within the next year going to be offering products. So if you're in the US on your phone, you're going to be able to get into Wells Fargo, Bank of America, Chase, and you're going to be able to access Bitcoin. And that's kind of crazy. That's kind of crazy because once that can happen, every person who's maybe on the fence in the United States doesn't want to deal with custody, knows that they shouldn't leave it on exchanges. They know that much because they saw what happened with FTX. But maybe this is something where even the FDIC steps in and says, yeah, we're going to cover up to $100,000 of Bitcoin in your account if you want to hold it. I do see a future where that happens. I don't know if they can only do that for legal tender, but one of the other things that's been rumored is that not only are they going to create a strategic Bitcoin reserve, but they're going to remove capital gains taxes, which would basically make it a cash product, right? Just like I can give you $5 and not have to pay tax on that exchange. If they did that for Bitcoin, it would be legendary. We'll talk about that in another episode. I am pulling up to the bank, so I hope everyone as well. Please go ahead and subscribe, follow, leave a comment about the strategic Bitcoin reserve. Once again, I'm just rambling, so I hope that this has made some semblance of sense, but stay tuned. Crypto Summit this Friday. I do believe we're going to hear news about a strategic Bitcoin reserve and maybe something I actually think is bigger if they take away, and I know some of this probably needs to go through Congress. This isn't just as simple, but the announcement alone would be directionally impressive if they were to take away capital gains taxes on Bitcoin. So anyways, pulling up to the bank, got my Bitcoin hoodie on, thanks to my sister who got me this for Christmas. Wishing everyone well. Have a good Wednesday.